with Jake Alge. This is going to be a gold nugget data bite. Jake, I want to ask you, you're a Purdue graduate, you're working as a data analyst. Do you love what you do?
Yeah, I really enjoy it because I'm at a very small company. It's something new every day. I'm not kind of sitting on the computer huddled over writing SQL all day. It's kind of a lot of different tools, a lot of learning on the job. I like that part of it a lot.
Well, you and I have both mentioned the fact that software engineering and data analytics are probably two of the most important skill sets, and yet young people who are undergrads are having trouble finding jobs. Where do you think the disconnect is there?
I think it's maybe a little bit of oversaturation, but it's also, you hear that, and then I also hear data jobs are in really high demand. I think in a sense both things are kind of true. I think a lot of the messaging that has been given to people in the last several years is just, learn Python and you're good. Learn to code, and that's not necessarily the case. I think if you are, if you're someone you want to get into data, first don't get into it just because it's like the hot field, because the hot field is always changing. And second, I would say kind of keep up with the news. Like maybe you go to college and big data is a thing, and then you graduate and now it's big data and artificial intelligence, and definitely specialize, and don't go into it just kind of like being a data guy. I would definitely kind of specialize and focus more on like the technical communication aspect of it, or it's kind of buzzwordy, but being like I'm someone who enjoys like building data structures from the ground up, like data architecture. I think data is such a big field now, it's hard to say just data. So my advice would be to like choose that specific thing within data. Maybe it's like, I love statistics, I'm machine learning and algorithms. I think it's really important to choose a very specific subfield of it and kind of keep up with the different tools and so forth in that. And that's kind of, I think data is too broad to just say, I'm getting into data, if that makes sense.
No, it makes all kinds of sense. And we live, both of us, in Indiana. I mean, you've got all kinds of factories and you got all kinds of farming here. So machine learning, there's definitely plenty of that. It's actually funny because some of the rural communities are adopting large language model stuff in their K through 12 education faster than the cities, because they're so used to artificial intelligence in farm equipment that it's not a new term to them. But one of the things that I would throw out there on the same front is I think the news sometimes, nobody's hiring undergrads. Well, they're talking about Coca-Cola, Amazon, Facebook. Like, okay, maybe they are leveraging artificial intelligence right now to offset like new hire employees. Eventually they're going to figure out that they're never going to have any senior employees if they don't have junior employees. But if you think outside the box a little bit, like how many small to medium-sized businesses are the inverse? They're trying to figure out how to leverage AI, and they don't have a data analyst or a software engineer or anybody with those skills. So I would encourage young people either A, look at fractional work, contracting, or B, look for that medium-sized business that maybe they're not going to have a data analytics team, but they would pay good money to have just one solid data analytics guy who not only understands data but understands business analytics.
Absolutely. And in that sort of role too, I have, definitely depends on the company, but I have known some people, you go into a corporate role and there is a lot of procedures you have to follow, not necessarily getting to do your own thing. At a smaller to medium-sized business, especially if you're one of the only guys there, they rely a lot on your expertise. You may be more valued in the sense that you have more responsibility. It may also be, you have that extra responsibility, but you're going to be kind of learning a lot more, going through the fire a bit more, so to say. And I think that a lot of growing can be done by young people at these kinds of businesses for sure.
Yeah, how exciting would that be? Like you're the one data expert in the room. So I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but one of the buzzes, one of the trends of like the millennials on down has been like, well, they show up at work expecting to be treated like a CEO, like they think they should. Well, you know what? A, that's unrealistic, but B, if you're the only person in the room that knows anything about a subject, you might just get to make that dream come true, right?
Right, yeah, you show up and you're kind of like the software guy in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome, man. All right. So any other advice you want to throw out there for young data analysts before we wrap this up?
Definitely cliche. I would just say maintain connections. Networking is great. A lot of times, just in my journey, I'll kind of connect with someone, and then I'm not great at like following up, and then we don't hear from each other again. I'll definitely stay maintaining connections. Like maybe that's like a monthly reminder. You call someone. Maybe that's just meeting up for coffee every now and then. Maybe you actually run ideas by each other, and so I think maintaining those connections is important. So maybe in the future, someone comes and says, hey, I got a startup, I need you to do this, and you only have that because you put in a little bit of effort, maybe each month or a couple months, to kind of maintain that.
Well, thank you, Jake. And Gen X to Gen Alpha, that's not a generational thing. That is a muscle that you definitely have to build. I've struggled with that my whole life too, not maintaining those connections in a way that, you meet, you're all fired up, you got all kinds of ideas, and then life happens and you kind of lose touch. Will you join me again sometime?
Oh, I would love to. This has been a blast, Jason. You're a great host.
Well, you're a great guest. Thank you.
Appreciate it.